You can't seriously expect us to cancel our gala plans. My mother's voice echoed through the hospital speaker. We've had those Seattle Symphony tickets for 6 months, Marissa. I stared at the ceiling, blinking through the fluorescent glare. My stomach clenched with a pain so sharp it took my breath away. I couldn't tell if it was the ruptured cyst or the sound of my mother's indifference that hurt more. My name is Marissa Clark. I'm 35 years old, a trauma, nurse, and a widow. I'm also the mother of two incredible 3-year-olds, Leo and Luna. We live in Portland, and tonight Christmas Eve should have been reading bedtime stories beside a twinkling tree. Instead, we were crammed into a sterile ER suite at Providence Medical, my babies curled up on a vinyl bench and me bleeding internally. I held the phone to my ear with trembling fingers, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom, I need emergency surgery. They just told me I have internal bleeding. I have no one else. She cut me off. Well, maybe you should have thought of that before choosing to live hours away and playing the martyr. You always do this create drama at the worst times. In the background, I heard the clinking of champagne flutes. My father's voice came through, clipped and cold. We're not babysitters, Marissa. You've been dumping your problems on us for years. It's time you figured it out on your own. We're retired. We earned peace. Peace. I wanted to scream. For the past 3 years, since they decided to retire early and travel the country, I had been the one keeping their world turning. I sent them $3,000 every single month without fail, paid off their car, helped with their property taxes, all while working double shifts at the hospital and raising twins after my husband Nathan died in a helicopter crash during a rescue mission. But in this moment, none of it mattered. Not the support, not the sacrifices, not the fact that I was calling them from a hospital bed, alone and terrified. Just as I felt the tears coming, a soft hand landed on my shoulder. You okay? Asked a voice beside me. I turned. A nurse, Tasha, stood by my IV, checking the drip. Her expression softened when she looked at the kids. Leo was half asleep, thumb in mouth. Luna sat cradling a stuffed bear, her little brows drawn in concern. I'm sorry you had to hear that, I whispered. I don't know what I'm going to do. Tasha leaned in. I might have an idea. She stepped into the hallway, returning moments later with a calm, confident woman in a dark coat and snow-dusted boots. Marissa, this is Jules Linwood. She's a certified trauma nanny. Used to work with kids who lost parents in accidents and fires. Now she does private crisis work. Lives nearby. She's the best. Jules knelt by Leo, brushing a curl off his forehead. Hi, sweetheart. You look tired. Want to come draw with me? He nodded slowly, following her like she was a magic spell come to life. Luna reached for Jules's hand without hesitation. Watching that broke something inside me and then rebuilt it in the same breath. I turned to Tasha, my voice thick with emotion. Yes. Please. Bring her in. She smiled and nodded. And just like that, I made the most important decision of my life. I stopped begging people to love us the way we deserved. I hung up the phone without another word to my parents. My hands were still shaking, but for once, it wasn't from fear, it was from resolve. As the surgical team began prepping the room, I closed my eyes and let the tears fall silent, hot, purifying. I had spent a lifetime being their safety net, their scapegoat, their source of income. But I wasn't doing it anymore. Not for them. Not for anyone who looked at my children and saw inconvenience instead of innocence. For the first time, I didn't feel like the broken one. I felt like the one who was finally breaking free. As they wheeled me toward the OR, I clutched the sides of the gurney like I was bracing for impact, not just from the surgery, but from the weight of everything I'd been holding back for years. Jules stayed with the twins. Tasha squeezed my hand. You're going to be okay. We've got them. Focus on healing. But how do you heal when the worst pain isn't in your body, it's in your heart? The last thing I saw before the anesthesia took over was the image of Luna reaching for Jules' hand, trusting her without fear. I held on to that. When I woke up, everything was dim and blurry. My mouth was dry. My body screamed with every movement. But the worst part was the gnawing thought, did I survive this only to keep living under their thumb? It took me 2 full days to sit up and grab my phone. But when I did, I didn't hesitate. I opened my banking app. I went into my scheduled payments. I hovered over that line. $3,000 recurring transfer to Richard and Diane Clark. Then, with a single swipe, I hit cancel all future transfers. Done. Next, I opened a message thread with my parents. I kept it short, sharp. I will no longer be providing financial support. My children and I deserve better than to be treated like burdens. Do not contact me again. My thumb lingered over. Send. Then I thought about everything, and I hit it. It was like cutting a cord I'd been wrapped in since childhood. Growing up, my brother Elliot was the sun in their sky. Golden boy. Athletic, charming, always forgiven. I was the difficult one. The too emotional girl who got good grades but never the praise. The one who learned to be self-sufficient because needing anything made me dramatic. When I got a full ride to nursing school, they barely came to my graduation. But when Elliot bought his second car at 24, they threw him a backyard party. When Nathan proposed to me, they complained the wedding venue was too outdoorsy. When Leo and Luna were born, they visited One Sand, brought noise-canceling headphones because babies cry too much. And yet, when they retired early, who did they call for help? Me. I was working night shifts, still breastfeeding twins. Grieving Nathan and I still sent them money. Every month. No questions asked. I told myself it was about doing the right thing. I told myself it was love. But it wasn't. It was guilt. It was fear. It was trying to buy something they were never going to give me. Acceptance. On the 4th day post-surgery, Tasha brought the twins into my hospital room. Leo ran to my bed, eyes wide. Mommy, band, AIDS. Luna climbed carefully up the side and curled into my arm like a kitten. Her warmth, her breath, her quiet, instinctive love. It anchored me. They've been so good, Jules said. But they missed you. I missed them too, I whispered, kissing their foreheads. More than anything. That night, after they left for my apartment with Jules, I lay staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed with new messages all from my parents. You can't just cut us off without notice. Do you have any idea what this does to our mortgage schedule? We're your family, Marissa. You'll regret this. Not once note once they ask how my surgery went. Not one message about the kids. Just panic about the money. 2 hours later, a text came from Elliot. What's going on? Mom said you're acting irrational. Is everything okay? I stared at the screen. Then I typed back. They didn't tell you I had emergency surgery? That I could have died? That they refused to watch Leo and Luna because of a concert? There was a long pause. Then, wait, what? Number? They said you were having a routine checkup and being dramatic again. I felt sick. I told Elliot everything over text at first. Then later, a voice message when I could speak without crying. He called me immediately. Marissa, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. They lied to me. His voice cracked. And for the first time in years, I didn't hear the golden boy. I heard a brother who was starting to see me. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. By the next morning, I felt different. Not healed, not safe, but grounded. I had drawn a line. I had chosen my children, my peace, and my self-respect over a lifetime of being used. And no matter what came next, foreclosure notices, family drama, guilt-laced emails, I wasn't stepping back over that line. Ever again. The hospital room was silent, except for the steady beeping of my monitor and the hum of overhead lights. I lay there, tubes still running from my arm, pain still radiating from the fresh incision in my abdomen butt. My hands were steady for the first time in days. I reached for my phone again. I needed to make peace with the possibility that I might not wake up. Not in the dramatic, movie scene way. Just realistically. I'd seen it before. Too many times. Internal bleeding wasn't something to play around with. And even though the surgery had gone well, nothing was ever guaranteed. So I did what I hoped I'd never have to do. I opened the camera app, turned it to selfie mode, and pressed record. "Hey, babies," I whispered, blinking back the sting in my eyes. Leo and Luna wouldn't understand this video, not yet. But maybe one day, if they ever needed it, it would remind them of how much I loved them, how hard I fought for them, how far I was willing to go to keep them safe. If something happens, I want you to know I tried everything I could to stay. I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because my body couldn't hold on. But you, both of you, you are my entire world. And you deserve everything good in this life. I paused, drawing a breath that burned down my ribs. Don't let anyone ever make you feel small or like a burden. You are not. You are joy. You are light. And you are so, so loved. I saved the video and backed it up to a private folder on the cloud. Then I opened my calendar. 3 days from now, monthly transfer to Richard and Diane Clark, $3,000. Not anymore. I canceled the payment. Then I sent a notice to my bank, requesting they flag all future attempts to draw funds from my parents' linked account. I wasn't just stopping. I was locking the door. It felt strange. Like I was tearing out a part of myself that had been there since childhood, the part that still sought their approval, still chased crumbs of affection, still clung to hope that maybe, one day, they'd see me. But something inside me had snapped, not in anger, not in vengeance, but in truth. They had already decided what I was worth. They decided it when they left me crying on the phone during surgery prep. They decided it when they called Leo and Luna too much instead of ours. They decided it every time they used me like a lifeline but cut me loose when I needed one myself. By day 5, I was finally lucid enough to sit up, sip some broth, and check my messages. 27 missed calls. Most of them from my mother. The rest were texts, and they followed a predictable, rhythm-like stages of emotional manipulation. 1. Confusion. Why are you doing this, Marissa? 2. Guilt. You're hurting us more than you realize. 3. Anger. We sacrificed everything for you. You're ungrateful. 4. Panic. The mortgage is due. You can't just stop without warning. 5. Desperation. We need you. Please, just talk to us. Not a single message asked how the surgery went. Not one asked if the twins were okay. Not one said, "We're sorry." They didn't miss me. They missed the money. The day I was discharged, the sky over Portland was gray and heavy, like it hadn't decided yet whether to cry or let me breathe. I walked slowly, every step tugging at the fresh scar under my ribs. Jules held one twin's hand in each of hers, and together we made our way through the automatic doors of Providence Medical Me, a little broken, a lot tired, and more certain than ever. We got home to a quiet apartment that suddenly felt too full of ghosts. Nathan's jacket still hung by the door. His favorite mug sat in the drying rack. I could almost hear his voice asking if I needed tea, or if the twins had eaten, or if I wanted him to call my parents and handle it all for me. But he was gone, and now, so were they. That evening, Elliot knocked on my door. I hadn't asked him to come, but I'd sent him the full story texts, call logs, everything. I wanted him to know the truth before it was spun into something else. He stepped inside slowly, holding 2 bags of groceries like peace offerings. "I didn't know," he said, his voice low. "They never said it was surgery, just that you were overreacting again." I said nothing, just watched him as he unpacked soup cans and fruit and tiny boxes of juice my kids loved. It was the kind of help I used to give without question. Seeing it come back my way felt foreign, strange, almost undeserved. "I'm sorry," he finally said, setting down a loaf of bread. "I should have asked more. I should have seen it sooner." I leaned on the counter, arms crossed over the thick bandage under my shirt. "They've always twisted things, Elliot. You know that. It just didn't affect you the same way." He looked up at me then, really looked. "Because I was the favorite," he said bitterly. "I thought they were overbearing. I didn't know they were cruel." His words cracked something open in me. Maybe I wasn't the only one who had been shaped by their manipulation. Maybe he'd just been on the other side of the same weapon. The next morning, he visited our parents. He texted me after. "You were right. It was worse than I thought." He told me everything later that night, after Leo and Luna were asleep and Jules had gone home. He found our parents in the middle of their usual passive-aggressive routine. My mom was crying, my dad was pacing. They'd just realized their January cruise deposit was non-refundable, and the mortgage payment bounced. When Elliot demanded to know why they hadn't told him about my surgery, my mom brushed it off. "It wasn't life-threatening. She's always exaggerating." Then my dad added, "And we had plans. We can't just drop everything for her every time she calls in a panic." Elliot's hands curled into fists as he repeated it to me. "I told them," he said, "that if she died in that hospital, I'd have buried them both with the weight of that decision. And I meant it." Something shifted after that. Elliot started coming around more often. Sometimes he brought dinner, sometimes just his presence. But it mattered. He played trucks with Leo, let Luna braid his hair. He even read bedtime stories in a voice that made them laugh so hard they forgot to miss Nathan for a while. One night, he brought up something that stopped me in my tracks. "You ever think maybe we were raised broken?" he asked, stirring mac and cheese. I nodded. "But I don't want to pass it down." That night, I watched my kids sleep and thought about all the ways trauma disguises itself as tradition, as obedience, as guilt, as love. I wasn't just fighting to heal myself anymore. I was fighting to rewrite the legacy. 2 days later, I got the first call from my parents I didn't ignore. Voicemail. From my mother. Her voice tight, rehearsed. "We need to talk. This has gone on long enough. You're being petty, and your behavior is affecting the entire family. Elliot's upset. People are asking questions." She never mentioned the surgery. Never asked if I was okay, just damage control. The second voicemail came that evening. "We need help, Marissa. We're behind on the house. Your father and we weren't prepared for this." Still no apology. Still no ownership. I deleted both messages. But the third voicemail wasn't from them. It was from my cousin Natalie, who lived across town. She'd heard some interesting stories from my dad at a family brunch. "He said you cut them off without warning," she said. "But I know your face, Marissa. That's not how you operate. I'd like to hear your side." And so I told her. Every word. By the end of that week, 5 family members had reached out offering help, meals, babysitting, even just a kind word. Elliot kept checking in. Jules became a fixture in our routine. And for the first time in years, I realized something. I had a family. Not the one I was born into, but the one I chose. The one who chose me. That night, Jules returned to the hospital with the twins. They came flying into the room like tiny hurricanes, both of them yelling, "Mommy," at full volume. I didn't care how much it hurt. I sat up and pulled them in. Jules smiled and handed me a card. It was from Luna. Scribbles and stars, a crooked heart, and a sticky note that said, she asked me how to spell brave. I held that card like it was made of gold. That was what I was fighting for. Later, as the room dimmed and the twins napped on the pull-out chair, Jules pulled up a seat beside my bed. "You okay?" she asked gently. I nodded. I think I'm done letting people treat me like an afterthought." Jules looked at me for a long moment, then said something I'd never forget. "Good. Because your kids are watching. And the way you let people treat you is the way they'll learn to let people treat them." I slept better that night than I had in years. I was folding laundry when I heard the knock. Not the kind of knock that says, "Hey, it's just me," dropping by. Noah was sharp, rhythmic, heavy. A demand, not a request. My stomach dropped. I peeked through the peephole. There they were. Richard and Diane Clark, my parents standing in the hallway like they hadn't just called me a burden 2 weeks ago. My mother clutched a glossy paper bag that probably held whatever she thought passed for an apology. My father stood rigid, arms crossed, his mouth already tight with impatience. I could feel the old reflex rising, the urge to open the door, smooth things over, make peace for the kids, for the holidays, for the sake of not making a scene. But I didn't. Not this time. I cracked the door open just enough to speak through it. "What do you want?" My voice was even, steady. My mother stepped forward, smile plastered on like a bandage over a bullet wound. "We've been worried, darling. You haven't answered our calls. We came to make sure you and the twins are okay." I blinked at her, not even a flicker of shame in her voice. "We're fine," I said flatly. "You can go now." My father pushed forward, his hand nudging the door. "It's not just that. We need to talk about this financial situation. The bank called about our mortgage. We had to dip into our cruise savings just to cover December's payment." The audacity hit me like a slap. Not a single question about how I was recovering. Not a word about the children. Just money. Always money. "I told you," I said calmly. "I'm done. I'm not your safety net." My mother's voice sharpened. "But sweetie, you can't just pull out like this. We built our budget around your help. You knew that. I built my life around the assumption that my parents would show up when I was on a hospital bed wondering if I'd see my children again." I snapped. That silenced her. For a second. Then my father's mouth twisted. "That's not fair, Marissa. We had plans. You expect us to drop everything every time you call crying?" "I had emergency surgery," I said, my voice rising. "There was a real chance I might not survive. Did you even ask what the doctor said?" Their silence was answer enough. I stepped into the hallway, closed the door behind me, and let the wall take my weight. "You made a choice," I said. "You chose a concert over your grandchildren. Over me." My mother's expression cracked. "We made one mistake. You're really going to punish us for it like this?" I let out a breath sharp, tired. "This isn't punishment. This is consequence." For a moment, the air stilled. Then Luna toddled into view through the glass door, clutching her little plush raccoon. She blinked up at the strange scene, her mother speaking quietly to strangers she didn't recognize. My mother perked up like a switch had been flipped. "There's my precious grandbaby," she cooed, crouching down. "Grandma brought you a surprise." Luna blinked, took one step back, and slipped her hand into mine. And just like that, the moment sealed. They were strangers to my daughter. I crouched beside Luna and whispered, "Why don't you go back inside with Uncle Elliot? He's reading your fire truck book." She nodded and scampered off. I stood up slowly. "She doesn't know you. You've seen her what? 3 times in her life?" My father opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "You made yourselves tourists in my life, and now you're mad you weren't given a front row seat." My mother's face crumpled not with guilt, but desperation. "Without your help, we'll lose everything." I looked her in the eyes. "I lost my husband. My kids lost their father. We didn't ask anyone to rescue us. We just survived." They stood there, speechless. Not angry, now just hollow. But even then, they didn't apologize. Even then, they didn't say, "We were wrong." So I ended it. "Please leave. If I ever feel ready to talk, I'll reach out. But not now. And not because of your bank balance." I stepped back inside and locked the door. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear. It was relief. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not the next. Instead, I tucked my kids into bed and kissed their foreheads, and reminded myself that I wasn't weak for setting boundaries. I was strong for finally enforcing them. I should have known they wouldn't take silence as an answer. 3 days after I shut the door in their faces, my phone buzzed with a group email. The subject line read, "Family concerns regarding Marissa." I felt a chill run down my spine. There it was, my father's signature tone. Formal, performative, weaponized, concern. I clicked. The message was 4 paragraphs long, polished, practiced, designed to trigger every nerve of shame they had spent a lifetime stitching into me. It opened with, "We are heartbroken to share that our daughter has chosen to cut off all contact with us, without warning or reason. We've always tried to support her through many struggles." Struggles? Like being widowed. Like raising 2 toddlers alone. Like going through surgery with no help from the very people who now played the victims. They painted me as unstable, irrational, ungrateful. They claimed I'd abandoned them in their time of need. They conveniently left out the part about refusing to watch their grandchildren because they had symphony tickets. The final line said it all. We've sacrificed so much for her. It's devastating to be repaid with silence and betrayal. My hands were trembling, but not from pain, not even from rage. This was something else, something colder. The understanding that they were never going to stop until they controlled the narrative. But this time, I had the truth, and people were listening. That same night, I got a call from my cousin Mike alone, of the few family members who had always seemed decent, though distant. His voice was sharp. Uncle Richard just emailed all of us acting like he's destitute. But didn't they just buy a new RV this summer? I almost laughed. Yeah, I said, with my money. Michael whistled through his teeth. Want to tell me what's really going on? So I did. Within 24 hours, I had 6 family members privately messaging me. Some shocked, some sympathetic, some quietly furious on my behalf. Turns out, I wasn't the only one they had manipulated over the years, just the one who finally said no. Even Aunt Patty, my mom's older sister and lifelong defender, called me. I had no idea, sweetheart, she said, genuinely shaken. They told me you were being dramatic over a minor procedure, that you were punishing them because they missed a dinner. I let the silence hang for a moment before replying. I almost died, Aunt Patty. It was emergency surgery. They knew. They just didn't care. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. It was Elliot who suggested how to respond. You don't have to defend yourself, he said over dinner, feeding Leo spoonfuls of mashed carrots. Just tell the truth. No anger, no drama. Just facts. Let them reveal themselves. So I did. I replied to the family email thread with one short message. On Christmas Eve, I was hospitalized for emergency surgery due to internal bleeding. My parents refused to help watch my children because they had prior concert plans. I am now recovering and focusing on my family. I'm sharing this for clarity, not conflict. Thank you to those who've reached out with support. That was it. No blame, no embellishment, just truth sharper than any lie they could throw. And the truth hit like a thunderclap. The responses started rolling in. Wait, what? They never told us it was that serious. How could they just not show up? Michael's wife dropped off a casserole the next day. Natalie offered to watch the twins so I could nap. A second cousin I hadn't spoken to in 5 years offered to hook me up with a freelance client for extra income. The tide was turning. But what shook me the most was Jessica. She messaged me that night. I had a huge fight with Mom and Dad. I confronted them. They just kept spinning. I told them I believe you. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. She started visiting again, bringing healthy meals, playing with the twins, asking questions about things she'd never bothered with before. Our conversations were cautious, like walking across thin ice after years of frost. But something had changed in her. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was growth. Either way, I no longer saw a rival. I saw a sisterin trying to shed the same armor I had carried for years. As support flowed in, something inside me began to melt. Not the pain was still there. The grief, the scars, the weight. But there was something else now, too. Validation, vindication, community. For the first time, I wasn't fighting alone. At the end of the week, Tasha from the hospital messaged me a Zoom link. Widowed Parents Support Circle. First Monday of the month. You in? I clicked yes without hesitation. That first meeting changed something fundamental in me. Seeing faces of people who got it, who had walked this path, felt the same bone-deep loneliness, who laughed through tears and cried without shame. It reminded me, I didn't just survive, I was rebuilding. It had been 3 weeks since the group email exploded across my family tree. 3 weeks of silence from my parents. 3 weeks of breathing room I didn't realize I'd been suffocating without. 3 weeks of Jules arriving each morning to help with the twins while I logged into client meetings, coffee in hand, pain meds in pocket. I was healing, not just from surgery, From all of it? Then the knock came. It was a Thursday afternoon. Leo was building a block tower. Luna was finger painting the coffee table. And my breath caught in my throat as I opened the door. There they were again. But this time, they looked different. My father's usual pressed polo and golf jacket were gone, replaced by a rumpled flannel shirt and dark under-eye circles. My mother wore no jewelry, no heels, no fake smile, just jeans and worry. "We need to talk," my dad said quietly. "Please." I didn't say a word, just stepped aside. Not out of pity, not out of weakness. Out of curiosity. I wanted to see how far they'd fallen. They sat at my tiny dining table, backs straight, like two people on trial, which, in a way, they were. My father slid a folder toward me. Inside was a spreadsheet. Colored cells, mortgage balances, credit card debts, line items labeled boat loan, property taxes, timeshare maintenance. The number at the bottom? $144,000. That's what they needed to stay afloat. He cleared his throat. "We've fallen behind. The second mortgage. The one we took out for the RV." He trailed off. My mother picked it up. "We thought we'd have more time. We thought you'd keep supporting us until we could adjust." My fingers tightened on the paper. "You built your lifestyle around my grief," I said softly. "You bought toys while I was raising 2 toddlers alone and working double shifts to keep your house standing." My father shifted in his seat. "It's not like we meant to take advantage. You offered. You said you'd help." "Temporarily," I shot back. "That was never supposed to be forever." My mother's eyes welled up. "If we lose the house." I held up a hand. "Then you sell the RV, the timeshare, the diamond tennis bracelet I saw at Thanksgiving." Her mouth parted in protest. "Those are our retirement luxuries." "You can't afford luxuries," I said. "That's the point. You've been living like I owe you a lifestyle. I don't." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Leo wandered in, clutching a toy fire truck. He looked at the strangers in our kitchen and tilted his head. "Mama, who dat?" My mother jumped to her feet. "There's my sweet boy. Grandma's here." He stared blankly, then walked away. She froze. That hit harder than anything I could have said. I stood. "You aren't owed access to my children just because you share DNA. You chose to be absent. That's what they'll remember." My dad stood too, voice rising. "You're really going to let us drown? After everything we did for you?" I raised my eyebrows. "What exactly did you do for me?" Silence. "Did you help when Nathan died? Did you watch the kids so I could sleep more than 3 hours? Did you visit the hospital when I nearly bled out?" Each question hit like a gavel. My mother's face crumpled again. "We didn't know how to help." "No, you just didn't want to," I said. "You only show up when you need something. And now you want to pull me down with you." They left without another word. That night, Elliot called. "They're spiraling," he said. "They finally started selling things, but it's not enough. They'll lose the house in 60 days unless something changes." I folded laundry while he talked. "Are you thinking about helping?" he asked carefully. I stared out the window. The truth? Number. And for once, I didn't feel guilty about it. The next week was a whirlwind. Jules helped me list the apartment. Diana from the support group, who happened to be a real estate agent, helped me tour a small 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood outside the city. It had a backyard, a tire swing, a patch of garden ready for tomatoes. I made an offer. It was accepted. We moved in a week before the foreclosure notice hit my parents' doorstep. Elliot called, half ashamed. "They're blaming you, telling everyone you abandoned them, that you promised to take care of them for life." I didn't even flinch. "Let them talk," I said. "The truth speaks for itself. It's strange how peace doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or music swelling in the background like in the movies. It sneaks in, quietly, like a warm breeze through a cracked window soft, unnoticed, until you realize you're breathing easier than you have in years." We'd been in the new house for almost a month. The twins were thriving. Leo had befriended the kid next door and now spent every afternoon in muddy shoes and wild laughter. Luna had claimed a corner of the backyard as her flower kingdom and insisted on wearing a tiara while watering weeds. Our home was smaller, simpler, but it was ours. No ghosts, no debt, no more phone calls from the bank. Jules still helped 3 mornings a week, and I'd scaled back on freelance clients to focus more on a side project that had slowly become a passion, designing memorial websites for grieving families. It started with the one I built for Nathan. Now, it was a real thing, a healing thing, a new chapter, born from heartbreak. Then one morning, a white envelope arrived in my mailbox. My name written in my mother's handwriting. I froze. For a long time, I considered throwing it away unopened. But curiosity has teeth, and I needed to know. Inside was a letter. Not typed, not cold. Handwritten. Personal. Real. Marissa, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I've had time to reflect. Watching you build a life without us, it forced me to confront truths I've spent years avoiding. You didn't need us financially. You needed love, support, basic decency, and we failed you. I used to resent your independence. It made me feel unneeded, but I see now I didn't earn your need. I tried to manipulate it. I'm sorry. Truly. Your father is trying, too. He's working part-time at a hardware store now. Not for pride, just to pay bills. We've sold almost everything. The boat, the timeshare, the jewelry. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking that you hear me, and maybe, someday, let us earn a place back in your life. I read it twice. Then I put it away. I didn't respond. Not right away. I wasn't ready. Jessica visited that weekend. She brought organic soup and a list of local playgroups for the twins. As we sat on the porch sipping tea while Luna tried to convince Leo that worms were good luck, I handed her the letter. She read it in silence. They've been talking about writing to you for weeks, she said. Dad was against it at first, but he's different now. I think the heart scare really shook him. Heart scare? I asked, the words catching. She nodded. Chest pains. High blood pressure. Nothing fatal, but enough to scare him into listening. He's actually following his doctor's orders now. First time in his life. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. A few months ago, I would have rushed to their side. Now, I was cautious, measured, not cruel, just clear. It took me 4 more weeks to agree to meet them. Neutral ground. No kids, no expectations. A small cafe near my new neighborhood. Quiet, sunlit, safe. When they walked in, I barely recognized them. My mother's usual designer polish was replaced by a cardigan with fraying cuffs. My father, once so upright and commanding, looked smaller, weathered, human. We sat in awkward silence until he spoke first. I was a terrible father. His voice cracked. And an even worse grandfather. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I see it now. My mother nodded, hands folded like a child waiting for judgment. We've been in therapy, she said. Family counseling. Jessica pushed us into it. We resisted at first, but it's been humbling. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just listened. And when it was my turn, I spoke clearly. I'm not here to reopen old wounds. I'm here to protect the life I've built. That includes Leo and Luna. They will not be exposed to emotional instability. That's non-negotiable. My father nodded, eyes glossy. My mother reached toward my hand but stopped short, uncertain. Would it be possible, someday, to know them? She asked softly. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo. Leo, covered in paint, beaming. Luna in her tiara, holding a worm like a crown jewel. They're happy, I said, and I intend to keep it that way. Then I looked up. Supervised visits. Short, slow, based on your behavior, not your words. As we said goodbye, I felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness, not trust, but peace. I walked back to my car feeling lighter than I had in years. Because whether they changed or not, I had. I wasn't the girl who chased approval. I wasn't the daughter who swallowed pain to keep the family from cracking. I was a mother, a protector, a builder of something new. And I had finally become someone I respected. I used to think revenge had to look like fire. Loud, raging, destructive. But now, sitting in the backyard of a modest house with my children giggling under the trees, I've learned something else. Sometimes, the best revenge is peace. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It doesn't post its victories on social media or throw its power around at holiday dinners. It's quiet. It's waking up and not feeling dread in your chest. It's tucking your kids into bed knowing they're safe, not just physically but emotionally. It's knowing you've broken a cycle that tried to break you. My parents? They're learning. Slowly. Painfully. And I'm letting them try on a tight leash. They get brief, supervised visits now. No sleepovers, no solo time, just small windows of opportunity to show up, really show up. I don't give them power. I give them the chance to earn trust. And if they blow it, that's on them. Jessica visits often. Sometimes I catch her watching Minot with envy like when we were kids, but with something closer to respect. We're learning how to be sisters, not competitors in our parents' spotlight. I still miss Nathan. That never fades. But I've stopped trying to fill the space he left. Instead, I've built around it, planted new roots where the wound once lived. My side business, those memorial websites, has become more than income. It's healing. For others. For me. So if you ask me whether I ever got revenge, I'd say this. I got better. I didn't scream. I didn't shame. I didn't burn it all down. I just walked away and built something stronger. Because the most powerful thing you can do when someone tries to make you feel small is to grow beyond their reach.